5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the MarketingSherpa Podcast. We're going to have an in-depth marketing discussion about a crucial topic starting now. So here's what I do before any big project, whether it's at work or at my house. I try to talk to someone with some experience and say, hey, what should I avoid? What am I going to mess up? You know, if I repaint my house, retile my bathroom, like what am I going to do accidentally wrong and regret it forever? And that's what we're going to try to do for you today. We're going to talk about web redesign, specifically 10 things you should think about before you do your next web redesign to help you not get into that trap, because the web is a major project. It is essentially like the home for your company's marketing message online that everyone sees. And it's kind of like redesigning a home. And joining me now, Austin McCraw, MECLABS here, Marketing Sherpa. He's a guy with a lot of experience both redesigning a home and redesigning a website. What was the biggest trap you got into in the home, redesigning
in the home?
In the home.
Oh my goodness. I tell you what, redesigning a house. So we're doing it 2 times now. So when we bought a major fixer-upper. And you know, I've always heard it takes 2 homes to build one. So it takes 2 rounds to actually figure out what you're doing. So I went into it, the home, not the website yet. We'll talk about the website. Thinking I knew how to do everything. So lay the floor, lay the tile, do the wall. And now I'm in a house and I can see every little learning, I'll say, associated with fixing up the house. So, you know, I don't think there's any major issues that happen. Just, you know, you learn along the way and make mistakes here and there and learn from it and move on.
We'll let people learn from our mistakes so they don't have to make
So
their own
that's
on their
the
website.
plan, right? So now with homes, I can have a conversation and say, you know what, when you put in the floor, you want to make sure that you get the tile underneath the baseboard, not, over the baseboard.
Oh, I tell you what I do stupidly, and you can do this on the website too. I see something and I'm like, oh, I could do it better than that. They don't need that thing there. So I do it differently, and then I find out, oh wait, there's a reason for that.
That's right.
You know, under your sink, how it there's that kind of elbow thing and stuff always gets stuck there.
The elbow thing.
Yeah, it kind of, there's like that curve. And so if something falls down your drain, your sink, like get rid of that curve and nothing will get stuck. Well, that actually keeps your house from blowing up. So that's what I found out.
It keeps the water, or the air from coming back in.
Keeps the sewer gas from coming back in your house. Okay, so let's keep sewer gas from seeping back into your website.
My favorite part, Dan, is when you take something apart to fix it and then you put it back together and you've got like 3 extra pieces, which were supposed to go back with, the thing, but you have no idea where they came from. That's the best part. It's
like the human appendix. It wasn't necessary. Until 3 months down the road and you're like, oh, that's what that thing was.
That's what that thing was for.
That's what that thing was for. So let's do the same thing for web redesign. Web redesign is a major project. So right now we're talking about this topic, but hey, let us know if you're listening what other topics you want us to talk about. editor@marketingsherpa.com are you working on a web redesign? What did you learn from it? Or what else do you need us to talk about on the podcast to help you avoid mistakes or just learn from? But the web redesign. So 10 things you should think about before you do your next web redesign. And when we're talking about this, hopefully we're talking to marketers out there. We're not talking about developers. We're getting through 10 in about 30 minutes. So boom, boom, boom. You're going to get a lot of things because, for some people, number 3 is going to be the biggest. For some people, number 8, number 9, it's going to be different for everybody. But again, it's from a marketer's point of view. We're not going to teach you how to code a website. There are developers who can do that.
Looking forward to that, Dan.
And we're not going to give you a project plan. These are just things to note and avoid. Okay, ready?
Very strategic things.
Number 1, the most important thing.
That's
ready?
Huge.
The most important thing. Why the heck are you doing it?
This is huge, right? I mean,
why
even have a redesign? I think from my experience, marketers and businesses feel like their site gets old every 2 to 3 years. And so we need a new site. And probably it comes with the natural churn with the marketing position. I don't know. What's the average tenure of a CMO, say, in an organization?
18 months.
18 months. So this corresponds to about the timing when everyone thinks they need a new website redesign. And so why are you actually doing it? Is it just because you want something fresh? Because you want to, whatever it may be? You really, I think the first question is, why you're actually doing it. Is it to actually serve the customer? Are you actually changing it because platforms have changed? Is your strategy changing? Are you shifting the strategy of the actual website? I mean, it can be useful to freshen up the website, but oftentimes the reasons can be very shallow. We just want a new site, and they can be very expensive too. So thinking through, what's the actual value prop of the redesign itself?
Yeah. I was looking at a website today, a very popular website, probably hasn't changed since 1994. It's called Craigslist. You ever go to Craigslist?
That's right.
Looks like it did in 1994, still functional, still working. Maybe I have issues, I don't know. But yeah, it's a good point. Some other things to keep in mind, if there's mergers, acquisitions, you're combining brands, like there are smart and good reasons to have that. Maybe you have a different strategy. Maybe you just need to increase conversion and there's something so fundamentally broken about that website, you have to change it. Like we talked about selling a house. So quick story, selling a house. My mom's from Queens. And so you go up to Queens now and you look, and in her old neighborhood, there are all these McMansions. And so we were talking to old friends of theirs and they had this old, decrepit, broken down house. Even the fuse box had this old fashioned glass fuses. And we're like, how are you going to sell this house? And they're like, no one wants it. They're just going to tear it down. So sometimes you might have to look at your site. And this is what you got to do sometimes, Austin, say, we just got to tear it down. We got to redesign it. We can't make these little tweaks to increase conversion.
Yeah, it's so much more difficult to try to improve upon an old system than to just start over again on a new platform. And so that's a big factor for why you're needing to do it. I think the best websites I've seen out there, they don't think in terms of redesign. They don't think in terms of trying to refresh the site every 3 years or whatever it may be. But rather they have kind of an iterative approach to testing their way into site improvements all the time, instead of kind of we're going to set it up, we're going to forget about it for a little while, and then we're going to rush to fix it up, then we're going to forget about it for a little while, but if you can create kind of a self-optimizing approach to websites, that would be much more effective.
So you're saying they just throw everything in the attic, and then after 20 years, they go, oh my gosh, what do I got here?
I can so relate to that right now.
Okay, so number one, think about what is the value prop for the redesign itself?
Yes,
Why are you
huge.
doing it? Does it have a good business reason? So the second thing, the whole reason for the website is to serve a customer, right, Austin? That's why we have them up.
Yeah. And this is directly connected to that last point I was making in terms of a self-optimizing site. If you can get your customer to inform the redesign, that would be the most effective thing you can do. Most of the times when I'm experiencing redesigns, it's coming from primarily a creative place, which is not bad. I like creativity, I like art, I like aesthetics. But rarely are the customers being brought to the table in terms of thinking through what should the site do? Is there a way to actually pre-test the site? How could you bring your customers into actually the site creation process itself? Could you, even more than just focus groups and surveys, those can be very powerful, but actually, can you actually test some things on your site to determine how you're going to do it? And definitely after you've kind of gotten further down the process and you've created some things, begin to, when we do website redesigns for companies, we'll have a 90-day calibration period. We're actually trying to test our way into certain iterations. We have certain hypotheses. You go with one into the marketplace, but you want to kind of, you have some other ones you want to test and play with.
I think this ties into the first thing we're talking about too, the value prop for the website redesign. If it's very company driven, if you're just doing it for a company reason, it's probably not the right reason. So you really have to understand, okay, with that value prop, how are we going to put the customer first with his website? What's the point of it? And also understand who that customer is, because that will drive it a lot, right?
It's huge. And I think to that last point, if you're going to go through the trouble of kind of rehauling platforms and, redoing your site, think about the data that you're going to be getting with your new site. You want to make sure that when you get it set up, you have a site that isn't just becoming a face for you into the world, but actually is giving you great customer insight. So if your site right now doesn't, collect data on the customer in a way that actually is cohesive and makes sense and actually contributes to a customer theory, man, a website redesign is a great time to do that. And that's really the ultimate way to make your website customer first.
So now the third reason ties deeply into that, and who is going to use the site, right? Now, this is true on two ends. So a lot of times we think who's going to use the site. We think of the front end. We were talking about that a bit, like the type of customers, the ages, and this sort of stuff. Yeah. But there's the back end too. Yeah. And so something I see often, this is where the marketer really has to step in, is just from the developer's point of view. And I love developers. They're good people. They build amazing things. We have our iPhones because of developers. But sometimes they think in such a different framework and such a different mind of thinking, and then they build this back end, and then the marketers who have to actually use it for the next few years, or content people, whoever's using it, it just doesn't make any sense to them. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's either very code heavy or it's just not put together in a way that makes sense. So also working with that user group, finding out, okay, who are the different teams that are going to use it? What are their use cases? And working through the back end with them so it makes sense and they can functionally use it. And the upside then is, you don't need so much dev heavy lifting. When that back end is built right, really developers should only be doing new advanced things, not just that, constant maintenance of the site, putting up new content, and those types of things.
Yeah, there's really, I can't improve much on what you're saying.
No, you can't.
There's really no reason why the site after the redesign shouldn't basically 90% of it be able to be used by the marketing team. To run tests, to change pages. There's platforms out there that make that really easy for marketers. Every time we do a redesign, one of the key primary objectives is, when we're done with this, we don't want to be needed. We don't, from a technology standpoint, this needs to be something that, Tim over in the marketing team can just, they can set up a campaign, they can create a new page, they can test with the actual platform itself. So that's a huge factor.
Yeah. So marketers, you and your marketing team, you should be one of the key customers as well. All right. So number 4, the other thing you have to think about is, what do you have to work with in this website redesign? So if you want to go to a developer and just see their head explode, see their just eyes bug out of their head, just ask them randomly, what would it take to redesign a website? Right? What would it take to redesign a website? And they'll probably say, well, that depends.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of things you have to think through there. What platform are you on now? What programs are you using? What do you have as your back and front end? What integrations are set up?
How many
How's your
websites
tracking set up? How many websites do you have?
That's probably the trickiest part of a website redesign is you don't know sometimes what you don't know. In fact, from a marketing standpoint, oftentimes things seem simple and easy. Hey, I just want to change that, checkout process. But that checkout process is connected to like 3 databases. One that was like legacy, one that was like, the new one that we're all wanting to go to, and then you got the transitionary one. And so, if you change that, it becomes a mess. So, one of the things, and this is not enjoyable for the marketer. It's not a fun process. But before you dive into changing things, getting a good map from the technology staff in terms of what you have to work with, what's going on here, letting them know all the websites you're wanting to bring together. A lot of times with website redesigns, you're trying to bring together an app experience with, you have this separate website. Someone at one point created this blog over here. And so, communicating to them, we're trying to bring all this together. What is that going to mean from a server standpoint, from a tech stack standpoint, from a database standpoint? Those are all not fun, but very essential questions.
Well, I'll come up with an analogy that'll make it fun for the marketer. Ready?
I'm ready for it, Dan.
Ready?
You are rocking the analogies today.
I like the analogies.
I love it. Is it going to be house or what?
No, I'm thinking of European analogies. So, us marketers were artists, and as Michelangelo famously said, I didn't make anything. I just carved until I set the angel free from the marble. It's the same way for the marketers. All that technology, all that grippy stuff, that's our marble. We need to work with the developers until we set the angel free and build that website. That's the thing of beauty.
I love the quote. I'm not sure about the analogy, but I don't know. Cliff, what do you think? Yeah. Okay. Well, you're getting a thumbs up from Cliff, so you're good.
Okay, number 5. Here's the other thing to think about before a web redesign. Who are you working with?
Yeah.
Who? Because that is huge. How big is your dev team? Is it one person? Is it an entire team? Is it local? Is it overseas? Who else is using the whole, who's responsible, who's accountable, who should be consulted, who should be informed.
That's right.
How are departments going to work together? Is it CMO, CIO, CTO? Like who's involved in all of this, and how do you rope it all together? Because it's a big project, right? Quick break, quick audio interstitial. I want to give you a resource that can really help with your own web redesign projects. MECLABS Institute, the parent research organization of MarketingSherpa, has a landing page optimization on-demand certification course. This is a course you can take at your own leisure, however you want. Take it at night, take it on the weekends, but it's got a patented methodology based on more than 20 years of research that's going to help you create effective landing pages and really going to help you create a website and landing pages that convert, that get what you ultimately need, those conversions, those sales, those leads. You can go to MECLABS.com/LPO. That's MECLABS.com/LPO to learn more about the landing page optimization on-demand certification course. Okay, let's get back into it. I think Austin is about to say something brilliant right about now.
Yeah, it's very similar to the previous one. This one is maybe a little more enjoyable for the marketer, but getting a sense for all the political landscape that you have to navigate through to get a website approved, you'd be surprised. And I know you probably know this intuitively, but you don't really know this until you website redesign, how many people want to say in the navigation of your website. How many people want to say in what you have in that first banner spot on your homepage. And so planning for that, thinking through that, thinking through the business ownership side of things is really important. I know you immediately think about the technology and all the platforms, but there are people who are going to want to say, and they're going to want to feel a part of the website redesign. And so even if they don't necessarily have to make all the decisions, just bringing them in at certain places is really smart and really strategic. And it saves you a lot of time and headaches later down the road in a website redesign project.
Yeah, and just who are the players internally and externally, right? There could be several vendors you're managing, and how do you get them to talk? How do you get them to get on the same page? I mean, one thing, when we were going through a website redesign, it sounds silly, it's a basic thing people should do, but just having a weekly face-to-face meeting was oodles and oodles and oodles more helpful than all the emails and Basecamps and all the other things you can use. Sometimes you got to make sure, because I noticed on the developer side, they seem to be a little more hesitant. They just want to get in there, knock it out. But taking that more agile approach where you're regularly talking, regularly communicating with each other, regularly having a stand-up, regularly actually looking eye to eye or, over the phone, whatever, and actually communicating about these things can really help.
Yeah.
If you're just communicating through writing, you can really lose a lot of things.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to say to, marketers out there who are doing this is, no matter who you are, no matter how great your organization is, a website redesign, you're going to have places where you get stuck. You're going to have disagreements. And I just want to say, at the end of the day, my opinion, Dan, you can disagree with this if you want to, is that the marketer should have a lot of authority in how the website actually exists. And so I would just say, even through all that, you, the marketer, are kind of the owner of the customer theory, who the customer is. The website is a way to communicate about your products in your organization. That's your world. Own it, drive it, be confident. Make those decisions. You have the authority for it.
So now we're marketers. So right now, probably, I'm just guessing, in an infinite universe, there's a technology podcast somewhere saying that the technology team should own the website because the website is technology and marketers should not own it. But of course, I totally agree with you. The technology should only be there to fuel what the marketers and what the company essentially is trying to do to get out there for the customer.
The technology
it's not
team,
just a piece of technology.
The technology team is incredibly valuable, but it is serving the purpose of communicating to the customer. And you have to, sometimes, you don't make a decision for your website. Don't cut a corner on your website for the sake of technology. You're going to, and I'm telling you, when it comes up, you're going to have to battle, and you're battling for the sake of the customer. So that's your role as a marketer.
That's your leverage too, right?
That's it.
That's your leverage is, okay, well, how's it going to affect the customer?
That's right.
How's it ultimately going to affect sales?
That's right. We were just having a conversation with, it was website redesign. We're talking about a registration funnel. And the tech team was really pushing for just using the out-of-the-box, solution for the registration funnel, which makes sense, right? It's a lot easier, no customizations, et cetera. But the reality is a lot of times you'll find the out-of-box solution is not ideal from a customer experience standpoint. And so we had a battle from the perspective of the market, say, no, yes, we'll use as much of the out-of-the-box as we can, but we're going to customize it here, here, and here because we've already tested our way into knowing that actually is a better experience for the customer.
All right, 10 things you should think about before you do your next web redesign. Number 6, what resources do you have? Kind of like we were talking before, there is no one standard web redesign. We talked about the team somewhat. You also have to understand what's your budget. What time frame do you have? These things can take a really long time. So what time frame do you have to get it done? And that can really affect the scope of what you're doing, which we're going to get into a little later. And also, if it's an external vendor, that budget becomes really important because that can affect how much work process they can deliver to you, right? So where have you noticed the resource thing come up? I mean, that's actually obviously huge, right?
Yeah, the resource thing can be it's just about creating, the right expectations from the website redesign. So no matter what you're thinking you need for a website redesign, you probably want to multiply that by 2, maybe 3. There are just things that you don't even know that are going to come up from a website redesign standpoint. So you definitely don't want to go in and think you're going to need this much amount of resources for it, this amount of time, or it's only going to take this long. Get halfway through and realize, oh my, we've already spent all of our budget, or oh my, we're not going to be able to hit our deadline. So the only thing I would say from this standpoint is you are likely going to need to overestimate from a website redesign standpoint. It's always tricky, and there's always things that I don't think there's been one website redesign project where something unexpected didn't come up, which required a lot of additional resources.
They have some cushion there for sure. Number 7, what type of site do you have? There's not just a one size fits all site. Some websites really, if you're listening and you're doing a website redesign, it might be like a brochure website where you've got 5 pages. And frankly, it wouldn't take that much. It's just a very small change. You could have a content website with 10,000 pages that go back 20 years. That could be a major, major change. You could have an e-commerce site where, like Austin, like you said, there's a significant shopping cart you have to change. You could have a site just focused at the US, or you could have international sites with many different languages. So you really have to figure out, okay, when you're talking about web redesign, it's a very big overarching thing. What is your site? What is its function? What is it serving?
Yeah, and this gets to kind of that first initial kind of question. These are very connected to what's the purpose of the website redesign, especially if it's a shift in the strategy. One of the dangers of a website redesign is to look at a website in a different category than your site and go, that's what we want. We want to, we have a brochure site, which really only needs 5 pages, but we see this crazy, awesome site over here that's an amazing content site. So let's do what they're doing. Just be careful about that. We can get excited about things sometimes. Be honest with yourself. In fact, I had a conversation actually just before this podcast, and it's a site that really honestly, it doesn't have a lot of traffic. They're not a big site. They've got a really targeted prospect group, but they're launching a blog on their site, and it makes sense. But they're not going to become a content site. They're not going to become a content destination site. And so, unless they make some major radical changes and investments in their organization, which I know they're not going to do, but if they start trying to design their site as if it is a content site, it's going to undermine the real objective of their site.
And that can be a problem when we talk about resources, because it's not the resources just to do the website. You have to have the care and feeding for the website going forward. And I've definitely seen companies go from a brochure site to a homepage that was clearly meant to be a content site, but on the back end, there wasn't really the content support to constantly keep that fresh and updated with new content.
And that happens all the time. Hey, we need to launch a blog. We need to start pumping out articles, and it's great for the first week or two, but then it just becomes, unless you staff it or resource it, that's big. Absolutely.
Now here's a scary one. I think this is probably the one that gives me the most anxiety is, how is your SEO going to be affected? Because I find SEO, it's a little like the Wizard of Oz. Google is like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and they're just a wizard doing stuff. And when you're changing your website, man, you could be changing some pretty significant stuff, some structural stuff, some navigation stuff, link stuff. If you're changing links, you got to make sure you're changing the links in the correct manner. There's a lot of stuff you really have to be careful there. If you get significant traffic from organic search, from SEO, make sure you really have an expert with you to make sure you're doing it the same way and you don't shoot yourself in the foot there.
Yeah. I think this is something that for certain sites is a big challenge, particularly sites that are legitimately content sites, and they've been so for years. To your point, I would say, and I might get some hate mail from this one, but the ultimate goal for your site is not SEO, it's to serve the customer. And so as you're thinking through navigation, as you're thinking through even the content on your pages, and this might be a little debatable, first and foremost, you want to think about what's going to serve your customer. Doesn't mean you ignore SEO, but SEO is meant to serve the purpose of getting your customer to the site. Why are you going to create a suboptimal experience for your customer for the sake of getting them to your website? And so we can't lose sight that the primary objective is always conversion related. It is always for the sake of the customer. Secondary is SEO, but you can't, unfortunately, I would say, you can't ignore SEO.
So Austin, I'm not an extremist like you. I'm a man of compromise. So here's what I would do. I would have these two sides. I would, what does it take for SEO? And on this side, what does it take for conversion? And just understand those factors. So I totally agree with you. The point of a site is for conversions for the customer, but you ignore SEO at your peril.
But let me not let you weasel out of this question, because there will be someone who made it to, what point are we on? Point
Point 8. 9 and 10 are you. Just wait till you get to
9 and 2 or 9 and 10 are coming up. Point 8 made it to this point of the podcast, and they're like, Dan, just kind of, So what happens though, Dan, when you have a navigation decision, and literally the navigation decision is make it clearer to the customer so they can navigate the site better, or keep the navigation a little bit less clear for the sake of maintaining SEO rank. What are you going to do?
So this is what I would use, what I call the Austin McCraw percent tactic. So for those who don't know, Austin, whenever you ask him something, he's great at giving you percent. So if you ask him, hey, Austin, how's that project coming? He'll be like, I'm about 73% done. I cannot do that. I'm like,
this is true.
Oh my God, done this week. He's like, I think I'm about 73.5 through.
Yeah.
Austin, what's the likelihood that customer is going to be coming next week? I think it's a 17.2% chance I'll be coming next week. So I would take that Austin McCraw meteorologist approach, and I'd say, okay, what are the odds here we're really going to hurt our SEO?
Yep.
And what are the odds here we're really going to hurt our conversion? And if it's a 20% chance you're hurting conversion and it's an 80% chance you're hurting SEO, it might be worth taking the SEO tactic. Now, odds are, I would also lean towards if I think it's going to rain, I'm going to bring an umbrella.
Yep.
So I would lean towards conversion because that's what you need at the end of the day. Yep. But you really got to be careful. If there's only a small chance you're affecting customers and a big chance you're affecting SEO. Yep.
Yeah, and so my approach would be slightly modified. I think what you're saying is great, and I saw the psychology there too, and trying to, this is my idea that you're presenting. I loved it, but I would say, so let's say we have an 80-20 and 80% SEO. I would say I would still want to personally, and this may be idealistic, I'd still want to serve the customer, but perhaps try to incrementally get there. So maybe you can't rip the Band-Aid off on the SEO right away, but maybe you can start doing incremental pieces and kind of, in some sense, train Google a little bit into the changes that you're wanting to make to serve the customer. Because ultimately, I think Google wants the same thing that, and I'm just using Google as an example, but Google wants the same thing that the marketer wants, the best customer experience. And supposedly the algorithms are meant to serve that purpose as well.
And clicking on a whole lot of paid search ads too. I think Google wants that too, right? So.
They probably want that. But let's end this question number 8 with, you're going to want to talk to an SEO expert when you're doing a website redesign. You're going to want them to get to, especially if it's really important for your site, because that stuff's always changing, and just, want to make sure you're aware of kind of the most current, up-to-date, best SEO practices.
All right, so question number 9.
Number 9.
This is your baby. You know this better than almost anyone. So as a gift, I'm giving you number 9 entirely.
What, do you get number 10?
How does the website express your value prop?
Yeah.
No, there's no trade. I'm just giving it to you. It's a gift. How does the website express your value prop?
Dan, you are right. You're making me happy here. So value proposition is huge. We talked about the value proposition of the site. You got to have that. We also talked about, you need a value proposition for all the stakeholders, okay? But we can't forget that the customer needs a value proposition, okay? Don't get lost in all just the site's going to be cool looking. It's going to function this way. It's going to be aesthetic. It's going to be, man, if you launch a website, a brand new website, and it's less clear what your value proposition is, massive fail. Major fail. All right. Use this opportunity to get really clear. In fact, I would say, and we would never do a website redesign project without first having a really in-depth value prop workshop, which I think in one of the podcasts we talked about, where we get deep into, what is the value proposition? Because we want the language on the site to echo that. We want the brand on the site to echo that. We want the structure of the site to even support the value proposition. So you can't lose sight of the whole goal here is to make sure your customer really understands what your value proposition is.
And I would even go one step further. It's the functionality of the site, right? The functionality of the site sometimes lends itself to the value proposition. Like you go to the New York Times, you can see it's a homepage that can quickly and easily be updated with breaking news. That's part of the value proposition. Yep. You go to Amazon, you can quickly find things. You know what I mean? So keep in mind that functionality too when you're talking about the value proposition.
To your point, value proposition is not limited to products. So, I mean, even a content-heavy site, even a site that's like a subscription-based site, your value proposition is not just copy that's trying to sell something. It's the overall experience. It's huge.
All right, final one, number 10.
Number 10.
Web redesign is the scope, right? So what we talked about, you can see probably from everything we said, this can get pretty complex. So you really have to understand, what do you really need and what are your dates? So for example, if you have 6 months to get a site up, well, what is a must have? What do you really have to get up by that time? And what becomes a phase 2 that you can get up in the next 6 months? But by properly scoping it out, it's going to make a huge difference. I think another thing that comes with scope is to what you were talking about, Austin, before about the funnel that you were talking about, the registration funnel.
Yes.
What can you get off the shelf and what must be homegrown or what must be customized, right?
Yep.
The more you can get off the shelf, again, if you're a pretty simple company with a brochure website, maybe you just need a simple WordPress website with 5 pages, But if the specific way that people purchase through your e-commerce path is important, you might need to customize that cart in some way.
That's huge. That's absolutely right. You certainly would like to, as much as possible, be off the shelf. I just trust me on that one. I know at the very beginning, it could be, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, but because a lot of these off-the-shelf platforms are going to be, there's communities around these things that are, providing additional plugins and updates, and if you customize it, becomes really difficult to integrate those in there. It becomes more challenging. One of the things in terms of scoping, I would venture to say as good of a project manager and good of a scoping job as you can do. As I've said earlier, you're going to find things along the way that are going to put wrenches in your plan. You're going to change the plans. It's going to become more difficult. You're going to have another business requirement. Your business is going to change in the middle of the redesign. It's a lot of factors. And so get really good at making trade-offs. And I don't mean that as a cop-out. I mean that as leadership. You will take, if you don't make trade-offs, your website redesign project is going to go on forever. You need to decide what's a must-have, what's a showstopper, what's a nice-to-have that you can kind of incrementally do later. Oftentimes, when we have found, when something has come up in a website redesign project, which is like, okay, this is going to take an additional 6 months to figure out the database or whatever, then what we do a lot of times, we'll phase it out, right? So we'll say, okay, so let's get clear. That was unexpected. We're not going to do that right now. We're going to do, phase 1 is going to be everything before that, so we can have some, semblance of success, and we don't hold up an overall great new experience we're going to launch because of some behind the scenes factor which the customer will never feel. So that can be phase 2 or phase 3. Be prepared. When I talk to marketers across the table that are doing website redesigns, I tell them up front, be ready to make some trade-offs. Be ready to make some tough decisions, and always have the customer in mind in those decisions.
Yeah, I've got the perfect analogy for you, Austin.
Oh, geez.
I would, right?
Oh, geez.
So real quickly, and this is actually what I thought about.
You were on fire with the analogies today. I love it.
This is actually what I thought about when we did a web redesign and we were scoping it out. And we did what you said, like you're under fire.
Yes.
You got to figure out, what do we really need? What do we not? What trade-offs do we make? So after Pearl Harbor, Doolittle's raid, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but after Pearl Harbor, America wanted to have a chance to quickly strike back. The problem is their bombers, their planes couldn't take off from their aircraft carriers. The field was too narrow.
Yeah.
So what they did is they just kept taking stuff off the plane that wasn't essential, right? They threw out machine gun they didn't need. They threw out all these different things just to get to the bare essential.
Right.
And ultimately, they were able to get that plane to take off from that small deck. And sometimes really in that fire and that heat of the final days, the final weeks, the final months of that website redesign, you really have to be the one that pushes and decides, this is essential, this is not. We're not going to get distracted by these things that aren't essential.
That's huge. And that can be big because there's a lot of tension around website redesigns. I've seen a lot of relationships, get really tense in the. It's kind of like it's
a reality TV show.
It's like reality television show. It's like a remodeling project, and anyone who's ever done that knows the stress it can be on a family, on relationships, and so just be aware of that going into it. Plan to have grace, plan to be able to make trade-offs. Because that will just save you a lot of sanity in the long run.
And clearly communicate. That helps with. I'm sure that helps with the remodel with family too. Like one thing I found, a Kanban board. If you don't know what those, look them up. Great way for everyone to just see what's moving along. And I think the final piece to keep in mind with that scope is you need to understand what success looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You really need to have a clear definition of success.
Yeah, because sometimes we can be fighting for the thing that really doesn't even matter. Some preference from some boss from, way over here in this other department can completely derail the project. And so that's why going back to the very beginning, what is the purpose of the website redesign? What's going to be success for you as the marketer and for you as an organization?
Well, on the Marketing Sherpa Podcast, success looks like helping our listeners climb that difficult journey up the mountain where the Sherpa's helping you along the side. So we hope this was helpful to you for your next redesign project. Help you get, avoid a few traps, help you become a little more successful. Let us know the next thing you want us to talk about at editor@marketingsherpa.com. And Austin, thanks for joining me.
My
Best of luck in your
pleasure.
future home redesign and web redesign projects.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to y'all for listening. So just finished listening and thinking, what can I do next? How can I use this information? How can I improve my results? Well, just go to marketingsherpa.com/results. We've got this great download for you, 21 charts and tools based on $500 million in carefully measured test wins. We'll give you an idea of how to model your customer's mind and also, get a chance of to understand how you can work with us, MECLABS, to help you directly improve your marketing performance. And with that, we don't need to tell them to subscribe and that stuff, right? They're marketers, they're digital, they know, right? Right, Rebecca?
I don't know about that, but I don't know what kind of marketers we would be if we didn't ask them to subscribe and include a call to action here at the end of the podcast. I think the other thing we should mention is like almost everything we do here at Marketing Sherpa, this is technically an experiment. So we are rolling out this podcast for a couple months. We're going to be doing it regularly and producing a lot of really high quality content for our audience. But if we don't see that it's going to make an impact for us and for the people who are listening, we may not keep it going or do it as often. So if you're excited about what we're producing here, you want to hear more of it, you want to hear it more often, definitely subscribe. If you're on a platform that allows you to thumbs up or provide a star rating, please do so for us because it lets us know that what we're doing here is meaningful to you and your marketing efforts for your customers. And that's really our ultimate goal. And we want to see those results and continue to help you grow. So that's kind of our call to action here.
Yeah, it's kind of meta, we're teaching them how to improve results and how to measure their results better. And we're saying like, hey, we eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne, whatever you want to call it, measuring our own results. At the end of the day, I'm not going to guilt trip them. You subscribe, don't subscribe, do whatever you want. I think Rebecca did mention like a kitten gets its wings or something every time you do subscribe or give a positive review. But again, no guilt trips.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to guilt trip our audience. Please subscribe. We love doing this for you guys, and we think that it provides a lot of value to the people in our audience. And I would really love to keep doing it for you. And we can't unless we know that it's making an impact. So definitely let us know. And the best way to do that is with a subscribe click or a thumbs up or a 5-star rating on iTunes.
All right. Thanks for listening.